Coming up on Network Africa, over 100 people killed in an attack in Ethiopia's Oromia region. Kenya plays host to a meeting of East African community heads of state to discuss peace and security in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Plus, this year's Commonwealth Summit, the theme Delivering a Common Future, opens in Rwanda. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Olaride. We begin in Ethiopia, where more than 100 people, mostly from the Amhara ethnic group, have been killed in an attack in the Oromia region of the country. The regional government confirmed the attack, with witnesses saying it's over 200 people that might have been killed, and they're blaming the Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, for one of the deadliest attacks in recent memories. However, the OLA have denied this. More witnesses who spoke to the Associated Press news agency after barely escaping the attack on Saturday say their bodies are being buried in mass graves. The attack comes as ethnic strife threatens to break apart Africa's second most populous country. Fighting that erupted in 2020 in the northern Tigray region spilled over into neighboring regions of Afar and Amhara last year. In the meantime, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has denounced the ethnic killings, calling it horrific and unacceptable, saying restoring peace and security is his government's priority. There's been no official figure for the death toll in Saturday's attacks, but some reports suggest it could be more than 100. The Prime Minister is often criticized for failing to deal with the worsening insecurity across his country. There's been an unprecedented surge in communal violence and ethnic conflicts since he came to power 4 years ago. But Mr. Abiy maintains that his administration has zero tolerance for the killings of civilians. Well, this is coming as the country is hosting a conference that's sponsored by China on improving peace and stability in the Horn of Africa. It's the first gathering of its kind, coming 4 months after Beijing appointed a veteran diplomat, Zhu Bing, as special envoy to the region. Officials from several East African countries are taking part of the summit. Well, China, which has invested heavily in Ethiopia and neighboring countries, is increasingly concerned about regional instability. Well, the week is full of meetings. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has called for a meeting of the East African community heads of state to discuss peace and security in the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to a government statement, Mr. Kenyatta, who is currently the head of the bloc, had last Wednesday urged the immediate deployment of a regional force to stop the violence in the eastern DRC. DR Congo is, however, opposed to Rwanda being part of the proposed regional force and has suspended bilateral relations with Kigali. It accuses Rwanda of backing M23 rebels who recently captured the border town of Bunagana. President Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC also accused Rwanda of seeking to occupy his country to exploit its minerals, and he asked the UK to pressure Kigali to stop the aggression. But Rwanda has denied those allegations. Well, tensions between the two countries have escalated in recent weeks, with anti-Rwanda protests reported in Kinshasa and in the east. Meanwhile, Congolese Nobel Peace Prize winner Denis Mukwege and Interior Minister Daniel Aselo are calling for an end to reported attacks that are targeting ethnic Tutsis living in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Well, scenes of people carrying machetes while hunting for Tutsis in the capital Kinshasa and other major towns circulated on social media over the weekend. Audio and video clips were also shared that identify the whereabouts of Tutsis. The attacks come amid rising tensions between DR Congo and neighboring Rwanda. DR Congo is accusing Rwanda of backing Congolese rebels and has halted all trade and cooperation agreements. Rwanda has denied supporting the M23 rebel group. That's a Tutsi-led group. Last week, an anti-Rwanda demonstration resulted in the looting of Rwandan-owned shops in the eastern town of Goma. Joining us now is Vincent Kimosop, a policy and governance expert at Sovereign Insight in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you, Vincent, for speaking to us on the program.
You're welcome. Good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening. Well, Kenya is playing a mediating role here between the DRC and Rwanda, with President Kenyatta calling for a meeting of the East African Community Heads of State. What are your thoughts on this?
You know that Kenya is the current chair of the EAC, that is the East African Community. So it's a leadership initiative that the Kenyan president is taking because of his position as the head of the chair of the East African Community. You also know that recently we had DRC being admitted into the EAC. So when you look at it, it is informed by the current position and Kenya's interests, and also regional interest. As you also know that we have a Commonwealth meeting that is taking place this week in Rwanda, and also meaning that it is a strategic thing to be able to act now in ways that they're able to get the most because of the political timing of the event, because Rwanda would want to look good globally. So when you look at those, then finally the humanitarian aspect, that these are Africans, they are our brothers and sisters, and leaders have a responsibility to respond to crises and challenges. And knowing that even Uhuru Kenyatta is on the last part of his administration, he would want to leave a legacy, not only internally, but also within the region.
Well, these tensions in recent weeks have escalated, but, you know, there's a background story to it. Accusations back and forth from both countries, that's the DRC and Rwanda, which has caused the severing of ties. There are also reports of attacks that are targeting ethnic Tutsis in the DRC. Isn't this already out of hand?
Of course, there is a historical dimension to this. As you know, that the M23 a rebel group have ties to Rwanda, mainly to the Tutsi tribe, which is the tribe that the president, Paul Kagame comes from. And so there is also the history of past conflict that took a regional dimension in DRC, where you had more than 16 countries participating. And then there is also the fight, the historical dimension of the members of the M23 and the fight within with the Hutus who moved to DRC. So there are historical dimensions to this, but also there are resource perspective related to this. You know very well that DRC is rich in resources, and you cannot rule out business and other interests that are taking advantage of all this history, regional, and also the timeliness of this to match violence and so that they can push certain sectarian interests within that part of our continent.
All right then, Vincent Kimosop, policy and governance expert at Sovereign Insight. Thank you for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
We move to Rwanda, where delegates attending the Commonwealth Summit that's hosted by Rwanda begin work later today at a series of opening forums. The week-long summit is expected to attract over 5,000 participants from government, business and civil society under the theme Delivering a Common Future. Foreign ministers from the 54 Commonwealth countries are due to meet on Thursday, followed by the heads of government summit 2 days later. This year's meeting has an agenda about climate change, economic development and opportunities for young people, with 60% of the Commonwealth population under the age of 30. We have the Africa Executive Director, One Campaign, Mr. Edwin Ikore, joining us now for more discussions on CHOGM 2022. Thank you, sir, for speaking to us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this year's CHOGM is in Rwanda with the theme delivering a common future, and there's much focus on climate change, economic development, and particularly opportunities for young people who are said to be 60% of the population in Commonwealth countries. So what is the significance of this theme?
Thank you. Great question. The theme is really strongly in tune with the realities of the world today. The converging effect of climate shocks, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the war in Ukraine has really made everything that we know to be bad to become really worse. And all the vulnerabilities that we've always had, among African countries, many of them that are part of CHOGM, of the Commonwealth, have basically come to the fore. Millions of people are at risk of famine as we speak. Hunger in the Horn of Africa. In fact, 1 in 10 people don't even have enough food as we speak right now. So indeed, the theme is coming at a time where this convergent crisis requires, that we think about the solutions that would enable us, come out of this kind of situation, especially when multilateralism has really, really faded in the past few months or years during the COVID pandemic. So it's a time, the theme is really, really significant right now because with the number of people that are out of jobs, especially young people, and the level of insecurity that is coming alongside with that, there is no other theme, no better theme to discuss right now than exactly what the theme is focused on.
So let's zoom in now to these young people. How can they really benefit? Young people in the Commonwealth countries, how can they benefit from this summit?
So the young people may not benefit directly, but the conversations that come from the summit is very significant in thinking about the solutions to meeting their needs, solutions in creating jobs, right? Solutions in exploring all of the opportunities that currently exist. Some of the speakers at the summit include some emerging companies, right? Emerging, what you call fintechs that are currently making waves. The question is, how can Commonwealth countries learn from each other in terms of the policy space, in terms of the design that is allowing some places to flourish? And if as they discuss, as they talk about their experiences, there's going to be learning that other countries in the Commonwealth can take. So the idea here is as they interact, as they explore opportunities, as many businesses collaborate, it can then translate into jobs as policies change, as reforms are made. Jobs can then be available for young people. And when young people find jobs and they unleash their potential, then you can think about a whole global economic recovery. So that's the way they would benefit in terms of the policy reforms, the decisions that will be made, the actions that will be taken, and the move from just individual countries acting alone to thinking of a platform that they can, co-create solutions, that really meet the needs of poor people. That's how I think these young people can really benefit from this conversation and this summit.
All right then, Africa Executive Director of One Campaign, Edwin Ikore, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Still ahead on the program. With a dignified ceremony, Belgium returns the only known remains, a gold-crowned tooth of Congolese independence leader Patrice Lumumba, to his family. Welcome back to the program. South Africa's government has announced that it may reintroduce transit visas for travelers passing through the country. Well, this follows an incident at the OR Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg last week when a group of Pakistani and Bangladeshi nationals were caught trying to enter the country illegally through the vent pipes at the airport. The 8 men were arrested, supposedly on their way to Eswatini. Speaking to the media at the OR Tambo Airport, the Minister for Transport, Fikile Mbalula, and Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi gave details of the incident, as well as what the government is doing to stop a repeat.
4 Bangladeshi and 4 Pakistan nationals were apprehended while attempting to enter the country illegally. These illegal foreign nationals arrived on a Qatar Airways flight from Doha, Qatar on the 15th of June, 2022. The nature of this incident suggests a coordinated criminal effort, which will be a clear violation attack on plethora of laws governing safety and security in our country. Dr. Mutwaledi outlined that this is not the first that was aborted. This is the second that has come to the public domain. It is very clear that somebody is making a lot of money trying to undermine our security systems in the airport.
One of my discoveries is that Home Affairs did stop transit visas in 2015. People no longer need transit visas when they go through South Africa, and I think that is being abused. From what we have seen, is being abused very thoroughly. So I'm here to announce that one of the measures we are going to take, apart from the alertness of the police to catch the rascals, is that we are going to demand transit visas. If you transit here to Eswatini, we must understand the reasons why.
The UN General Assembly is convening an informal high-level meeting to mark the commemoration of the first International Day for Countering Hate Speech, which took place for the first time in 2022 on June 18th. Well, the day is to recognize the need to counter discrimination, xenophobia and hate speech, and call on relevant actors, including states, to increase efforts to address this menace in line with international human rights law. Briefing reporters at the UN headquarters in New York, Special Advisor on Genocide, Alice Inderitu, said the key challenge is that there's no worldwide consensus on what constitutes hate speech.
I would think the key challenge is that we do not have a worldwide consensus on what constitutes hate speech. So very specific ways of using hate speech so that then that dehumanizes the person who is targeted, so that that then enables the population, because to commit a genocide you do need the support of a whole segment of society, convinces them that what they are doing is okay, that they are actually killing cockroaches or fleas, they are not killing human beings. So with social media companies, we know that often we know that hate speech, which of course already existed offline, is amplified through social media. Violent extremist groups have used social media platforms to recruit, to disseminate hateful narratives, incite violence. We saw that in Iraq and Syria with ISIL. We are seeing that with Al-Shabaab currently, right now. We've seen that with Boko Haram. We also, I spoke to also about social media, how it contributes to fan flames of violence when violence is already existing. Although we know, of course, that social media is useful in the sense that it provides this space to engage. But from the basis of my mandate, I have to keep pointing out that social media platforms must take steps to ensure platforms are not abused, to spread hate speech and utilize for the better good.
The Belgian authorities have handed the tooth belonging to Congo's independence leader Patrice Lumumba to his family in a ceremony at the Egmont Palace in central Brussels. Oh, it's the only part of him that is thought to still exist after he was executed and then his body dissolved in acid in 1961. Belgium was the former colonial power, and an official inquiry said that some members of its government at the time were morally responsible for circumstances leading to his death. Well, the Belgian Prime Minister reiterated that his country's authorities bore a moral responsibility over Patrice Lumumba's killing, apologizing to the family on behalf of the Belgian government.
In a televised ceremony, Belgium handed over to the relative of Congo's independence leader, Patrice Lumumba, a small bright blue box containing his tooth, the last remains of the slain leader, turning a page on a grim chapter in its colonial past. The tooth was placed in a casket that was then draped in the flag of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which celebrates Lumumba, who was murdered by separatists and Belgian mercenaries in 1961 as an anti-colonial hero.
En réalité, beaucoup trop tard. It's really an honor for me to participate in the event and be able to hand over to you the remains of your father, who was a symbol of many things for a lot of people in the world.
Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo reiterated that his country's authorities bore moral responsibility over the killing.
Que dire encore de Lumumba?
Too late, much too late, because no, it is not normal that Belgians held on to the remains of one of the founding fathers of the Congolese nation for 6 decades. It is not normal that for 6 decades, the remains of one of the founding fathers of the Congolese nation were kept in obscure circumstances, which were never really elucidated, but which in light of what we know today, do not make us proud.
Une source d'inspiration.
Lumumba's assassination and the brutal history of Belgian control of the Congo have been enduring sources of pain between the two countries.
Ainsi que nos enfants.
Father, my brothers and I, as well as our children and your great-grandchildren, have tried through this address to find the words to bid you farewell 61 years after your disappearance. But we have to admit that nothing can express what we're feeling today. We can only wish that wherever you are, you can be proud of your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. Father, welcome back to the country.
A fiery critic of Belgium's rapacious rule, Patrice Lumumba became its country's first prime minister after it gained independence in 1960. But he fell out with the former colonial power and the United States and was ousted in a coup a few months after taking office. He was executed on January the 17th, 1961, aged just 35, in the southern region of Katanga with the support of Belgian mercenaries. His body was dissolved in acid and never found, but the tooth was kept as a trophy by one of those involved. The casket containing the tooth is said to be flown back to the DRC, where it will be officially laid to rest at a memorial site. The country is set to hold 3 days of national mourning from the 27th to the 30th of June, its 62nd anniversary of independence, to mark the burial ceremony.
In providing a clean environment and combating climate change, a refugee from DR Congo, Vasco Hamisi, is providing clean and sustainable energy to businesses and homes in Kenya's Kakuma refugee camp. He has started a business that provides clean energy on a 20 kWp solar panel grid, a lifeline for thousands of refugees and their hosts.
Vasco Hamisi is checking on solar panels at Okapi Green Energy Limited in northwestern Kenya's Kakuma refugee camp. The Congolese refugee is the brains behind this plant, which provides clean energy to 200 businesses in and outside the camp.
I decided to go in green energy first. When I came here, we are really struggling to get light.
Hamisi arrived in Kakuma 12 years ago after fleeing fighting in his hometown in the Democratic Republic of Congo. He set up Okapi Green Energy as a private company and in 2017 received $28,000 from various donors to set up a 20 kilowatt solar mini grid. Bitisho Tusambe, a Congolese refugee, runs a shop that offers printing and photography services. She also sells mobile phone accessories. She has reliable energy supply through the Okapi mini grid. Only 1% of over 200,000 refugees in the camp and the adjacent Kalobiyi settlement have access to electricity through the main power grid. The rest have to rely on expensive and often unstable alternative sources. With donor support, UNHCR and partners have installed 13 new solarized boreholes and fitted 2 health facilities with solar systems in Kakuma and Kalobiyi. More support is also needed for refugee-owned businesses like Okapi to supply clean energy to refugee households. Hamisi says he's glad he can contribute towards clean energy solutions in the camp, where most refugee families cannot afford to light their houses at night.
I've seen that we are still having more potential people who are still coming to ask for connection. But for the power that we have, the 20 kilowatts that we have, we cannot connect everyone in Kakuma.
The company employs 10 staff members, most of whom are refugees. Hamisi plans to replicate the project in different parts of Kakuma in future.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olaride.